Effects of the war. We may briefly analyze the effects of the First World War, which were felt by the whole world. In many respects, it changed the course of history. Number one, great loss of life and property. The war caused great loss of life and property. The cost of the war was estimated at $386,000 million. 42 million soldiers fought on the side of the Allies and 23 million soldiers on the side of the Central Powers. Among these, 9 million died and 20 million were wounded. Millions of civilians all over the world indirectly died of starvation, disease, and other causes. The birth rate fell. The destruction of property was colossal and far beyond the imagination of people in 1914 when the war began. The victorious as well as the defeated powers lost in terms of astronomical figures. Every country had to borrow heavily from the public. The Allied side borrowed around $10 billion from the United States of America. Not only the existing property was destroyed, but future production of wealth sharply declined. It took the world a long time to recover from the shocks of the war and begin production at the pre-war level. The post-war period was of great misery. Prices were high and continued to spiral higher, while unemployment became rampant. Several countries, like unfortunate individuals, were reduced to bankruptcy. Government took desperate measures, and printing presses turned out currency notes in tons. The inflation in some countries became so devastating that paper money was hardly worth the paper on which it was printed. Savings of people were wiped out overnight. Number two, fate of the defeated. The German, the Austrian, the Russian, and the Ottoman, Turkish empires crashed with a big thud. The map of the world was redrawn as boundaries of different countries had to be changed. The fate of the defeated powers could better be imagined than described. Germany was completely broken. Her dream of world supremacy vanished. She now became a second rate power, thrown to the tender mercies of the treaty makers at Paris in 1990 to 1920. She had to surrender all her warships, submarines, motor trucks, railway trains, and other material. Her colonies were seized by the victorious powers. Compulsory military training ended, and war industries came to a grinding halt. She was asked to pay huge reparations to the victors, as she was held solely responsible for the war in the war guilt clause. To ensure that Germany paid them, the left bank of the Rhine was to be occupied by Allied armies. The dual monarchy of the Austria-Hungary came to an ignominious end. Austria and Hungary became separate states. The Austrian Empire was broken up and its territory was redistributed on its ruins. Those the independent Republic of Czechoslovakia. হ্যালো, আমি চেকোস্লোভাকিয়ায় বলবো। চেকোস্লোভাকিয়া বা এটা কি বলা যায়? Slovakia to বুঝছি, Czechoslovakia. The Russian Empire was torn to pieces in Europe and its territory was redistributed. The Polish provinces were linked with the Polish provinces of Prussia and Austria. This resulted in the creation of the independent state of Poland. Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia broke off to become independent states. The Ottoman Empire was broken and its territory was redistributed. Egypt and the Arab state of Hejaz were given independence, but they were placed under British supervision. Similarly, Palestine also became independent and placed under British control. Syria was put under French control. The British, who secured Mesopotamia, rich christened it as Iraq, and appointed an Arab king to rule under their control. Turkey, the sick man of Europe, was put on his deathbed. Allied powers became stronger. The Allied powers became stronger. The loss of the defeated powers in terms of territory was partly the gain of the victorious powers. The British Empire was enlarged, though Britain came out of the war exhausted. The French gained territory at the expense of Germany. They could recover Alsace and Lorraine conquered from them by Prussia in 1871. Italy gained territory which she said was far below her expectation. As a disgruntled victor, she secured Trent, Trieste, and Istria, which were under Austria. Japan became more powerful at the expense of Germany, Russia, and China. The United States of America became the real victor. No battles were fought on her territory, and the uh, theaters of war were far away. The war gave a tremendous boost to American industries, which earned tons of dollars. The fabulous wealth of the United States further increased, and she could afford to be the creditor of European nations and act as a patron. America came out of her shell of traditional isolation in the international field in a big way for profit making, politics, and diplomacy. President Woodrow Wilson was at Paris in 1919, carving out the future of the world. America became a great power, inclined to increase her power through her dollar. Number four, emergence of new nations on the principle of self determination. The war marked the great triumph of nationalism. Several suppressed nationalities became independent nations on the ruins of the old empires. As observed earlier, as empires disintegrated, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland, Hungary, Yugoslavia, and Albania became nation states. Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, the Baltic states, and Germany became republics. Number five, birth of the League of Nations. The League of Nations, an international organization to prevent the outbreak of future world wars, took birth. The Treaties of Paris in 1919 to 20, which brought the war to a formal closure, made provision for the establishment of the League of Nations. Number six, revival of barbarism. The First World War exposed the civilized man of the 20th century as a mad barbarian, more ruthless than his counterpart in the Stone Ages before the dawn of history. Never had the world seen such inhumanity, cruelty, and degradation of man as during the war. Masses of people were wiped out as the big powers were playing the game of power politics through a bloody war. Man's crookedness, meanness, sadism, and hypocrisy had free play for 4 long years of war hysteria. The lethal weapons which were made seemed to suggest that man was as brutal as the jungle tiger, and centuries of civilization not only taught him nothing but also made him worse. Wow.